Welcome to Book Cuddle. I'm your host, Karen Reeder with Readgab. Today, our guest is Maria Dolores Aguila. Thank you for joining us today, Maria.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to talk about A Sea of Lemon Trees, and we'll tell you all about it shortly. But I love to first get to know our author. So, Maria, can you tell us a little bit about you? Tell us you besides that you're an amazing author.
Well, I am a Chicana author from San Diego, California. I am a third or fourth generation Mexican American, however, you want to look at it from mom's side or dad's
Oh,
side.
nice.
I have been obsessed with books since I was a little girl. Like reading has always been my thing as far back as I could remember. So to be an author is, a dream come true. But aside from that, I love super spicy food and a lot of coffee.
Nice. I love it. Okay, so to get to know just some little fun things about you, we're going to do an author icebreaker based on a book. So I love the book Candy Shop War by Brendan Mull, and the kids do magic by eating candy, right? And so they can
Mhm.
do different things like jump really far with this candy. What would your magical power be? But tell us the candy too. What would the candy be, and what power would it give you?
So over here in San Diego, California, where I live, in most of the little stores on the corners, they have a huge selection of Mexican candies. And I don't know if you've had a lot of Mexican candy, but it's usually like a spicy sweet candy,
Hmm.
right? It's usually with tamarindo and chile and all that stuff. So I would pick, it's this little jar that it's not a jar, but a little like bottle. It's very small and it's
Uh-huh.
called a Lucas powder. And it's like this spicy sweet candy. We used to love it as little kids. And so my power would be like the Lucas powder. And since it's spicy, I imagine that I would be like throwing fireballs or something.
Nice. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Is it like, do you eat it like those powder sticks that you like lick the stick and put it on a stick and put it in your mouth? You put your finger in or whatever and
No, no, it actually comes with like a top that you spin and you can like pour a lot out or just like a little sprinkle.
okay. And
And a lot
then
of people like they'll put it on a fruit or something, but when we were kids, like we would just mix water in it and like chug it. We were crazy.
nice. I love it. All right. Tell us what A Sea of Lemon Trees is about. This one, the Newberry honor, the Pura Belpre
Put it Belpre.
honor book as well. All right. Tell us about it.
So, A Sea of Lemon Trees is about the 1931 Lemon Grove desegregation case, and it was a rural community in San Diego. Basically, what happened is that all those kids in Lemon Grove, California, went to one school. And because of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl and the economic downturn that was happening, the Mexican community was being scapegoated as, the reason for the economic downturn. So there was this anti-Mexican and anti-immigrant sentiment like kind of sweeping across the nation. And when it came to Lemon Grove, they decided to build a separate school for the Mexican and Mexican American children. And so what they did is they retrofitted an old barn. And so the community found out, what the plan was. And, they said, no, we're not going to go to a separate school.
Right.
And they organized into a committee and they sued the school district to reintegrate the school. I can stop there or I can give it away. But
No,
it's
it's so hard to
basically
be like, it's history. Do we just tell them what happened? But even that, when I'm reading a book, I'm like, no, I'm not going to go look up the history that I don't know. I'm going to go through. So we're going to let people go and be surprised if
yes.
they don't know the history, because that's the fun part about a middle grade book. If it was a picture book, I'd say yes, because picture books are so short. It's like,
Yes, but we basically follow Roberto Alvarez, who was the lead plaintiff on this journey of him, becoming the lead plaintiff of this case.
and Roberto, he's the real lead plaintiff. He is the one who
Yes.
really did it. So,
Mhm.
why did you decide to do real Roberto and his story? Is there just enough information out there? Tell us about why you picked Roberto.
So when you're writing a story in a book, one of the things that you have to figure out is who is the most interesting character, right? Because that's who we want to read about, right? I thought about maybe doing a side fictional character,
Right.
and there are several fictional characters throughout the book, but when it came down to it, Roberto's perspective was the most interesting one.
Nice.
But I needed the flexibility of the historical fiction, right? To like be able to really dive into what I think it might might have felt, undergoing this case.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go back to what inspired just going down this at all. Why did you decide to write a book about this?
So what really interested me was the Mexican repatriation. And I became interested in it because my great grandmother, she died when my grandmother was very, very young. My grandmother was a toddler. And as far as I had known my entire life, my grandparents had immigrated from Chihuahua, Mexico. And, that was the story, and we all accepted it, right?
Right.
And so when I was a kid, I remember my grandmother went to take her citizenship test.
Okay.
And, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, okay, great. Like
Yeah.
she took her
Mhm.
test, she's a
Okay.
citizen, like that's awesome, right? And so years later, when my grandmother had already passed, I became interested in looking at my own ancestry to like kind of
Yes.
figure out, what was going on. And what I found out was that my great grandmother was a US citizen.
Mm,
And so, my grandmother was technically a US
yes.
citizen as well through birth,
Why would she need to do
right?
a citizenship test?
Yes, but
Right.
we didn't, they didn't have any papers. They didn't have, anything like, there was no ancestry.com at the time,
Right.
right? So I became really interested because I saw that her brothers had also been born in Texas. And I was like, why was she born in Chihuahua when everyone else was born in Texas? So I
Right.
started looking around and I found out about the Mexican repatriation. And I was like, what the heck is this? And so I found out that during the Great Depression, and there's like no official numbers, but they say that anywhere from about 200,000 to 2 million Mexican and Mexican Americans were deported back to Mexico during the Great Depression without due process. And the majority of them were children, and the majority of them were US citizens. And
Right.
so yeah. And so when I found that out, my mind was blown. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, I wonder what happened in San Diego. So then I, started doing research into what happened in San Diego, and I found out about this case, right? That was happening at that time. And I was like, wow, I live like 5 or 10 minutes away from Lemon Grove. Why did
Wow.
no one tell me this when I was a kid? Like I would have loved to learn a history like this.
Yes.
And so that just started like a whole like rabbit hole that I had to go to the very bottom to find everything that I could. And
Right.
then when I was done, I was like, everybody else needs to know this too.
Yes. Yes. So is this your first middle grade? Because I know you have that picture book. Is this the
Yes,
first middle grade?
yes, my debut middle grade.
Okay. So you're like, I've got to share this story. And then what possessed you that was like, and it's going to be in verse?
So with my first book, it was a two-book deal, right? So I had that book and I was like, okay, the first book is called Barrio Rising and it's a historical fiction about Chicano Park in San Diego. And I was like, okay, great. I'll write a picture book about this Lemon Grove incident and it'll be two books about San
Yes.
Diego history. And so I, pitched it to my publisher and they were like, oh, someone else just wrote one.
Oh,
And I was like, and it's like it just had just come out, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then so my editor at the time goes, well, why don't you write it as a middle grade? And immediately when she said that, it like clicked in my head. I was like, the first lines of the poem came to me, like the opening words, which was "I live in a sea of lemon trees," and immediately, like I think I wrote it in a little bit in about a year,
yes.
and it just came to me, and I
Beautiful.
scaffolded from the picture book to create this middle grade novel. And so when we turned it into my publisher, she declined it. She passed on it.
Oh,
And so I was like devastated. I was like ugly crying, like I was so sad about it. But at this time I had an agent, so we went on a wide submission to other publishers, and it ended up, getting multiple offers from
nice.
different publishers.
Good.
But
Good.
it was a bit of a shock when it happened, at the time.
Oh man, because it's like two book get deal does not guarantee what two books, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, oh man. I'm so glad that it made its way out into the world. It's so, so beautiful. So you're already a poet, right? And
Yes.
so it
Mhm.
just worked really well to just keep with the
Yes.
numbers and verse and
Yes, it was absolutely perfect. And when I connected with this editor who is the one that eventually we eventually went with, like
yeah,
had so many good ideas, and she really shaped the book into what you read today.
Nice.
And so it had to happen the way it happened, right? Like it was
Good.
hard, but it
Yeah,
had to happen that
yeah.
way.
Doesn't mean it was a fun path. It just means it was good that it happened. Oh
Mhm.
man. Okay. So, can you tell me about researching for it? You found out about it, but you needed to do more research, right? Especially since it was on a real person.
Yes. So fortunately, a lot of Chicano scholars have written extensively about it. So
Nice.
I was able to dive into, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's that website called JSTOR,
Okay.
JSTOR. They have a lot of academic articles. So this was during the pandemic. So they had like let everybody look at their archives. And
Nice.
so I just like sat and like read through every single thing that I could. There's also a documentary about it.
Oh, nice.
And there's also some oral histories on YouTube where some of the kids that were involved, well, they're grown up right now, they're,
Yes, right.
elders, but they share their oral histories about
Good.
it.
Did
Um,
Roberto share his?
yes, in the documentary.
Good.
And his son, Roberto Alvarez Jr., wrote his dissertation on it.
Nice.
So I read his whole dissertation. And there was other kinds of research too, right? Like the corridos that were played at the time and all that stuff. Then there's so many people doing so many different types of research.
Right.
And it was like so nice. Like, I don't know, like researching is my favorite part. Like you literally
Yes.
have to pull me away and be like, no more, you gotta write,
You
And I'm
gotta
like,
write it now. Take all that you learned and write a book.
but just let me look at this one more piece. No.
Right.
And so I will research until I feel like I have a really deep understanding. And then, I can sit down and I can be like, okay, this is what we're gonna create. Because it also like involved looking up old maps of street names and place names of
Yes.
Lemon Grove and
Right.
looking up the different sorts of ethnobotany like that they use. So I mean, for me, research is such an enjoyable part of the process.
That's good. That's awesome. What was your treasured find that was just like, this was so exciting to find this bit of information?
So for me, one of the most exciting things was finding out about the corridos. And so what I mean by when I say the corridos is during that time, corridos were used to pass information from one Mexican American or Mexican community to another. And
Okay.
they passed information through song.
Oh,
And so you see them in the book because I just found that so interesting the way that a marginalized community might not pass information through a traditional means like a book or a newspaper,
yes.
right? It goes through a song. And so,
That is,
when I learned about the corridos immediately, I was like, all right, we're going to call it, where the subtitle's going to be the corrido of Roberto Alvarez, because,
yes.
we're telling a story here.
Yes. So
Mhm.
are any, because oh, now I forgot his name, that travels with his guitar. He has to
Anastasio.
go.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So are any of these like real songs in the book,
Yes.
like that you
Yeah.
found that you included some of that?
Yes. Yes. There's
Okay.
a few real songs in there. And on the teacher's guide, there's a link where you can listen to some of them, like
Oh,
in their
so
entirety.
cool. Okay. I love
Yes.
that. I love
Uh-huh.
that. All right, what made you most emotional about writing this? Either when you were researching it or writing, or if you can answer speak to both, what made you really emotional?
Without being spoilery, it had to be when the Mexican repatriation comes to Lemon Grove.
Yeah.
And I had to write that scene. Oh my gosh, like even now I still like choke up when I read it out loud for other people. It's just such a moment where a painful moment and a moment where Roberto really loses his innocence like in the
Yeah.
world, right? Because like until that moment, like things have been bad, but then you're like, wow, sometimes there things happen that we don't really get to come back from, right?
Right, right.
So,
And he's 12. He's 12. Like,
yeah.
I find it so interesting that throughout the book, the parents and the older siblings are trying to protect him, right? They don't want him to
Hmm.
see the newspapers when the raids are happening in other places,
Hmm.
and they don't want him to experience this, but yet he's the lead plaintiff.
Hmm.
They're like, let's protect you, but grow up. We need you to
Yes.
do all this
Hmm.
too. He's just in a
Hmm.
world of just
Hmm.
so much emotion. It was incredible.
Yes. Yeah. So that definitely was like one of the biggest emotional moments in
Yeah.
the book.
Yes, let's see, on page 201, I really like this line. It was really interesting to me. Staying was still like fleeing, that they,
Hmm.
even though they were staying, it wasn't comfortable and it wasn't everything that was forever. They were still
Hmm.
feeling this
Yes.
leaving in
Hmm.
a sense, it was
Hmm.
it was very powerful. And another on page 219, it talks about, he's going, I can't remember the person. Is it the singer on 219? See it?
Ah, yes, Anastasio. Uh-huh.
Okay, so he's leaving, and Roberto, he wonders, he's like, when he comes back, will he be the same person, right? And
Hmm.
a lot of the story is, is Roberto the same person? So what
Hmm.
about you? Are you the same person as when you first started researching and writing A Sea of Lemon Trees? And can you share with us how you have changed?
I think well, I can't speak in absolutes, but for
Yes,
me,
of course.
every single time I write a book, I'm definitely a different person at
Right,
the end of it, right? Because not only am I writing about a journey of someone overcoming, but I'm on my own journey of overcoming my own self-doubts and my own obstacles as I write the book, right?
right,
And so I'm definitely not the same person. But one thing that I feel like really changed, especially with this book, is I always saw books as a means to deliver information and like intellectually, I knew that it was a way to connect.
right,
But the way that this book has resonated with other people and the stories that they tell me have really opened my heart to a way that a book offers such a place for people to connect really deeply.
yes,
Like, and on, I don't know, like on an emotional, spiritual level, like there's just
yes,
this deep connection that you forge. And I guess I didn't really understand what it meant to really connect from the author side because I was always such a big reader. Like I connected with books on the reader side, but when
right,
I get to talk to people and they tell me like, what it meant to them or they tell me, their favorite bits, it's like, wow, like
right.
that's crazy. Like we know each other, but we don't know each other, you know?
Yes, you have this connection
Hmm.
because the story
Hmm.
has become theirs now too, and it's
Hmm.
yours, and it is your
Hmm.
heart. And I love so much that
Hmm.
it's historical fiction because, like you were saying,
Hmm.
it's, a way of getting information, but it's
Hmm.
so emotional too. It is so
Hmm.
powerful. And without even having said it, I understood a lot of things because I was telling
Hmm.
people about it. I'm always
Hmm.
talking about what I'm currently reading and what I'm going to be
Yeah.
interviewing about. And I was like, yeah, and these families, they're being deported, and a lot of them, they're, legal citizens. And then I was
Hmm.
like, I don't know if it ever said that. Like, I don't know if it ever said that. But
Uh-huh.
because I was able to feel that, it was implied and
Hmm.
the emotion was there. And so it's
Hmm.
funny what doesn't need to be said when it's felt.
Hmm.
And
Yes. Hmm.
it was so beautiful. You did such a good job of putting that
Thank
much
you.
emotional into it. Can you share, and are you comfortable with this, sharing anything about what else is personal to this for you?
So because it's a historical fiction, a lot of Roberto's like interiority is kind of based on my experience. And so in the very beginning, Roberto is very concerned about the piñata, right? Like he's
Yes.
like
What about
and I
having two piñatas?
right? He's like, I just need to hit the piñata.
Yes,
And
that's so important.
I based that off of my own experience as a kid because I was always one of the tallest kids. And
Mm.
so when they line us up for the piñata, I would always be at the very end, right?
Oh,
And I'd be like back there, I'd be like biting my nails. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get a turn to hit the piñata. I'm not gonna get a turn to hit the
yes.
piñata. So that is a part of me that I wrote into Roberto, right?
Nice.
This whole like it's such a kid thing, right? Like to be
Yes.
concerned with with the piñata. But when I was a kid, it was like a legitimate concern.
Right? And I love that though, that that's what is important to you. And we need to not dismiss what is important to children because, like, even in the
Hmm.
books, they're just like, the others don't care about piñata and everything like that. They're
Hmm.
just like, what's the big deal? But
Hmm.
we need to take children seriously and what is
Hmm.
important to them and what do they value. I like that that was there, that was
Yeah.
how it started for him because what becomes important to him more later is a big thing.
Hmm.
But at the same time, he's a kid and we should take seriously like these emotions and things that are important
Yes.
to them. Love it.
Hmm.
Can you tell us, because you said the line just came to you, Sea of Lemon Tree. Can you tell us
Mhm.
about the title? And I love that it flows throughout and, just constantly this phrase, a sea of lemon trees throughout the book.
Yes. So a sea of lemon trees comes from when I was doing my research, I found this advertisement and they were trying to convince people to come live in Lemon Grove.
Yes,
And it was like the new Pasadena and like the greatest climate on earth.
right?
But one of the things that it said was a sea of lemon trees as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
And that just stuck with me like a sea of lemon trees. And it was just like the imagery like I couldn't let go of. I was like,
Yes,
how can I extend this metaphor, right? Like
right.
even more because like the lemon grove that I know, there's no lemon trees, but in that time, it was just like a sea of them. So, that's where it came from.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. What about the cover? Were you able to be involved at all in this beautiful cover?
So the cover is a story, okay?
Okay, okay, I want to hear it.
So initially, my editor came to me and she had a few different people
Hmm.
in mind, and they'll show you like they'll tell you who it is, and you get to see their portfolio.
Right,
And you really just get like an input, right? Like you don't get to say, oh,
right,
finally, like this is who I want and nobody else. So I saw them and I was like, well, they're great artists, but like I'm not really vibing with it. And so she's like, okay, I'll come back to you with some more people. And so then I never heard back. And then all of a sudden she was like, oh, Rafael Lopez is doing the cover. And I was like, what? Like Rafael Lopez is doing the cover? Like you never told me. She's like, I did it. And I was like,
I didn't. By the way,
right? And so when I first saw the black and white sketch, like I was like in love. Like
oh,
I love it so much. I think it's so beautiful. And Rafael Lopez is such an amazing artist.
yeah,
And I had wanted him for a book before, but he was too busy. He was
yeah,
really booked out. So to have him on the Sea of Lemon Trees to do the cover, it was like, oh, full circle moment. And I was so happy.
love it. All
Mhm.
right, we've talked about how it changed you. What do you hope it will do for other people? A sea of lemon trees.
My biggest wish is when readers, especially young readers, read this book and they see how a community came together to organize and that it wasn't easy and it was actually hard and painful at certain points, but they held together and together they were able to overcome, to resist an injustice, right? And
Yes,
I think so often when we see organizing or we see protesting, like it's like a very nice and neat, cut and dried thing, right? But it's really not. It takes a lot of people over a long time and with a sustained effort. And
yes,
so I hope that they see the reality of organizing and staying firm through it and feel inspired to make changes in their own communities, like positive changes.
yes, yes. I love it. Like it affects families, and they keep
Hmm.
going and it continues to affect whole families. Like it's not just one member of the family that's in
Hmm.
this, that the whole family is affected by it, whether they're part of the protest and the change or not.
Hmm.
So yeah, that it's when it's something worthwhile, it's going to have some effect on
Yes.
everybody
Hmm.
involved on all
Yes.
levels. Yes, but that's what you do when something's important and when change needs to happen, right?
Hmm.
Love
Hmm.
it. I love
Exactly.
I love all the emotion that I felt in
Hmm.
this. So beautiful. Can you share with us what's next? More picture books, more middle grade? Do you have anything in the works that you
Yeah.
want to share?
So next year I have a picture book coming out called You Don't Have to Say.
Okay.
It's based on my experience with my kids. I have three kids, and all of them had speech delays.
Okay.
Yeah, because they all had ADHD and autism. So they all took a little while to speak. And so You Don't Have to Say explores the day in the life of a speech delayed child and mother, and how you don't have to say anything to get your message across because there's other ways to communicate besides like verbal language, right?
Yes.
So that book coming out in fall 2027.
Love it.
And right now I am working on a YA novel about the 1968 East LA walkouts and the 1970 Chicano moratorium. I'm like deep in the revising cave with that right now. So I'm on a deadline with it. So it's being worked on.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm excited for it. We can't wait for more from Maria.
Thank
And
you.
you tell us a book that you love that impacted you in some way through the years.
Yes, my friend Daniela Ramirez wrote Welcome Home Esmeralda, and it's a picture book, and it's actually about a family moving back home from to Texas from Germany,
Oh,
after her father, received orders, right? So it's a military family, and I thought it was such a great slice of life story, and you often don't see military families, especially like Mexican American military families
yes,
in
yes.
picture books. So it was a great book and I loved it so much. It's excellent.
Oh, love it. All right. What about this is something new that librarians have asked for. What
Hmm.
about like your comp titles? So if somebody has loved A Sea of Lemon Trees. What have
Uh-huh.
they read?
I would recommend A Seed in the Sun by Aida Salazar. And I
Nice.
would also recommend One Big Open Sky from Lisa Ransom Klein, I believe. Those are two historical fiction novels in verses. They're also middle grade. They're amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Maria. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate all that you do to share so much emotion and history in your books.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope that you enjoyed hearing Maria talk about A Sea of Lemon Trees. It's such a fantastic book, and if you don't have it yet, I highly recommend that you go get it. If you enjoy my podcast, Book Cuddle, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a second and rate and review Book Cuddle on your podcast platform, because this is how podcasts grow and become more searchable for people to be able to find the podcast.